Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today I want to discuss issues of cooperation between people. Now, cooperation between people is made possible when people understand the value of cooperation. In many parts of the world, in many societies in the world, in many countries in the world, people do not understand the value of cooperation and therefore are unable to form functional, progressive societies. They are unable to look beyond themselves very often. Sometimes they are able to look beyond themselves in as far as it relates to family, but they are unable to look beyond their families. And sometimes they are able to look beyond their families, but then they are unable to look beyond their extended families and or tribes. And sometimes they are able to do that, but then they are unable to look beyond their ethnicity or their nationality. Now, all of these limitations that we place on ourselves as human beings is, in principle, what holds us back. And we see a very interesting thing happening in the world where a lot of people who have benefited from the multicultural experiment are now looking to go back to a more socially cohesive society, homogenous society based off of a common culture and based off of a common race. So there's a strong move towards white supremacy with white nationalism. Now, obviously, that's not surprising given the colonial history. White supremacy is the dominant religion in the world, followed by other forms of supremacy. Arab supremacy is also a religion in the world, Iranian supremacy, Pakistani supremacy, Japanese supremacy, things like this. You find these things to be very dominant in ethno-nationalistic societies, okay? And you don't find it very common in countries that have rainbow nations or multinational, multi-ethnic societies, because they can't be, simply they can't. They don't have a homogeneous set of ethnic, cultural and religious values that ties them all together in those type of multicultural countries. And both has its pros and cons. I'm not bemoaning white supremacy in the sense that I cannot see the value in white supremacy, in Arab nationalism and Arab supremacy, in the Chinese being that way perhaps, or the Japanese, or the Indians, or the Pakistanis, or the Somalis. They all have that as ethnic societies. Ethnic as in homogeneous, based on tribes and color and etc. Now I'm a South African, so I don't have that in South Africa because I come from a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, and I come from a multi-ethnic, multi-religious family, in fact. So it is not possible for me to think in those terms. But I do understand why people think in those terms and why people are comfortable in those scenarios and why they push for that. Okay, it is essentially a important aspect for people who otherwise don't have an identity. Okay, people want to belong, they want an identity, and the thing in the modern context that helps form your identity is often your nationality, because that is the way that politics has evolved. But before that, it is based on colonialism, it is the color of your skin, so white, essentially. So if you are white and you are European, so then you have more in common with other white Europeans. And if you are belonging to a country, say you belong to the country England, and you are white and you are European, then you have a lot in common with the white English European person. And then if you are Christian, then you touch wood on a lot of fronts. And so naturally you will want to coexist with people who are like you. So so I'm not discrediting the white supremacist movement and white supremacy from that perspective, and also the movement that wants immigrants, brown, black immigrants, and especially Muslim immigrants out of Europe. I actually interestingly understand it, despite my not being Christian and despite my not being from that mindset, fortunately. So I do understand it, first of all. But let me say that this problem is is a result of there being an absence of God in all these societies, by the way. Because if you feel deeply connected to and grounded to God, then you don't have an identity crisis based on ethnic, religious and geographical problems, boundaries. Because when you have a deep connection to God, then you know that the earth belongs to God, and that all peoples in the earth, different colors, nationalities, different languages, they are all placed in this earth by God, and that these form part of one world and one society and one community, and that these people are not one superior to the other, but that they can learn from each other and learn to know each other and cooperate with each other. And this is where my talk started. So in order for there to be progress in the world and cooperation, the first thing that needs to go is the superiority complexes based on arbitrary things like color, like nationality. You are not superior because you are white, you are not superior because you are black, you are not superior because you are Arab, you are not superior because you are Chinese or Japanese or what have you. Okay? When those things are dropped, people can cooperate better, and especially in a global world, because you are able to give credit where credit is due based on merit. And when merit becomes the highest indicator for contribution and for recognition, then you will suddenly realize that you are benefiting tremendously from the knowledge contribution and the societal contribution in a global world that is colorblind, essentially. Because you don't care. You want the knowledge, you want the benefit, you want the what you can gain. And so it doesn't matter if the contributor is Muslim or Christian or black or white or Hindu or what have you, because those are separate issues. The issue is, okay, how does said person contribute to our society? And that's what matters. And when that becomes the focus, and there is that level of cooperation, the species will survive, the human species. Because contrary to what many people might think, we are at a crossroads where we are at risk of annihilation. Now, that may not look that way right now. You'll say, how? We are over 8 billion, 9 billion people in the world. How? Don't we have too many people in the world? Well, all it takes is for one generation not to have children. And we are, on the brink of extinction. Just one generation, that's all it takes. And this is starting to happen increasingly because of this supremacist ideology, and because of this, and also we are being held back technologically, even because we are unable to recognize the merits of contributors. Now, why the Western world has progressed and has actually ruled for the last couple of hundreds of years, 250 years, the American Empire has ruled for 250 years as the world empire, global empire, is precisely because of the attitude whereby they have invited the best minds and the best workers to their country to boost their technological advantage over the world and their economy over the world economy as best they could. That's one aspect of it. You will notice that every empire at the helm of progress has that mentality. In the golden era of Islam, when there was still Islam in the world, that was, you can say, in the time of Harun al-Rashid, in the Abbasid era, roughly, when would be that be in the common era? 800, they are 800, around there, right? When they had Islam, you will see that they became the global center of learning. So Baghdad became the global center of learning, and everyone who wanted to know almost anything had to do it through the medium of Arabic and had to travel to Baghdad to study in their universities to learn about any variety of subjects that they wanted to learn about, and then also subsequently they contributed a body of knowledge to the existing body of knowledge, to the place that was gathering knowledge. So it was not that Muslims were the most brilliant geniuses and knew everything. No, it wasn't that. It was that they opened their doors to people to come in, okay, to facilitate the furtherance of their sciences and to contribute to their knowledge base. That's what they did. That's what America did. That's what the UK did in this now latest global empire. The heirs to the Islamic global empire was, of course, now the Western Empire. And that's what they did. But they are also making the exact same mistake the Muslims made when they became ethno-nationalists, and they wanted an all-Arab thing, or the Turks, at least to some extent, believed in Turkish superiority. The Iranians believe in Iranian ethno-superiority, etc. That is what destroyed the Islamic world, and that's the same thing that is destroying the English-speaking world if they allow it to happen, and that is with white supremacy. You see, the strength of the Western world is that they have been able to welcome in people from all around the world who then contribute to their economy, their society, and their knowledge base. If the immigrants, for example, left the UK tomorrow, the economy will collapse. That's a fact. Because they don't have a replacement generation. They haven't for years. And the immigrants have children, a lot of them. And they run the health services. They run a lot of functions in the government, in parliament, the industrial services, the road works, the electric works, the telecommunications work. These are flooded with workers who are actually not from there, non-whites. Okay, if you must leave, kick all the whites out of the UK, the non-whites out of the UK, all the immigrants and children of immigrants, all the non-whites, the country would in fact collapse. And that is why it is important to recognize merit for what it is, to look past cultural bias, to look past religious bias, even for that matter, and to just look at things purely in terms of contribution. Okay, what can these people contribute? So this is from the British American Anglosphere side of things. So they are basically on the decline because they are succumbing to their white supremacist ideology, and they want to marginalize their biggest contributors to their societies, which are actually immigrants, incidentally. And that you can see that, I mean, it's a basic fact. For example, the owner of X and Tesla and SpaceX is an immigrant. He's a South African immigrant, right? Richest man in the world. Name is Elon Musk. Immigrant. A lot of people who work in Silicon Valley, okay, CEO of some of these companies, Amazon, in Google, in all these places, immigrants. Some of them are Indians, brilliant minds, okay. In the fields of science, nuclear physicists, MIT graduates, running very important departments. Some of them are Iranian, yes, okay. Doctors, a lot of the doctors in Canada, for example, who came in as immigrants are Arab, Syrian Arabs, form part of a class of highly educated people because they received a good education, etc. Okay? If you look at some of the heads of departments, some of the Arabs, okay, from the Middle East, working in the United States, working in the UK, excelling in science in ways they can't excel in Arabia, incidentally. Okay? So, and that is again what holds them back. If we bring it back now to the Islamic world, what holds them back again is this nepotism, is not wanting to recognize merit for what merit is, and people giving a one-up to their relatives and to their families and putting them in positions they don't actually deserve because they haven't earned it. And this creates a dysfunctional system, because then those people who are brilliant and who are going to uplift your country, they need to go to other countries to work there, and then they contribute to the wealth of that nation, the knowledge base of that nation, the progress of that nation. We've seen that even in South Africa. South Africa has regularly claimed, the government anyway, has complained about what they call the brain drain. That these brilliant South Africans are running departments and companies and are in high up places in other countries, in other governments, in other infrastructures around the world. And that's true. Okay? And why don't they, it is reasoned, do the same for South Africa? Again, the same problem we have in South Africa. The problem is corruption. They cannot. That same brilliant person who is doing amazing things in the country that gave him a chance, right, would not have been given that chance in his own country, because in his own country, the people who are given a chance are the brothers and uncles and cronies of people in power. Nepotism. Nepotism is what kills merit. And if you don't run a meritocracy, you cannot have mutual cooperation between the best brains, not only in your country, but in the world. Because you will put people in places who don't deserve to be there. And that is why people leave their countries. And that's fine too, for them to leave their countries, to find a place where they can progress, because it is their right to progress. They are not owned by the country they were born in. And so my final sort of message is that if you want to progress as a world and a civilization, any civilization, then you only need to follow the model of civilizations that have been successful, at least for the time that they were successful before they fell. And of course, civilizations do rise and fall. And one of the key features of progressive civilizations, for while they were still powerful, was their recognition of merit. They were all meritocracies. Then they become corrupt, and then tribalism, racism, superiority complexes based off of absolutely nothing, based off of blood only, kicks into place, and then that's the nail in the coffin. And so to conclude, the crisis of the population, that we will not have a population, is also compounded by these things. Okay, naturally, God made it that people are attracted to other people who don't look like them, who don't sound like them. Those people who have very straight hair, they like the ones with the crinkly hair. If people can look past their racism, for example, white men like black women, and black women like white men, and Chinese women wonder what it must be like to be with, I don't know, an African man, etc. Okay, these people have a natural proclivity towards what they think is exotic and different, and that's there for a reason. It's there because mating across gene pools makes for stronger babies. It's that simple. Okay, mating too close within the same gene pool creates weaker people. And so we need to get with the program of nature, what's natural, and walk away from ethno-nationalism, and Iranians can only marry Iranians, and Palestinians can only marry Palestinians, and Arab to Arab, and Egyptian to Egypt. All these kinds of things we need to get rid of. And we need to start seeing ourselves the way we really are, which is a global world. Thank you very much.